Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. Really excited for the guest I have on. He and I have just recently connected, and I'm excited for the stuff that he's done, the book that he's written to help you as parents, and not only that, to help your kids, which is, in my opinion, more important than helping you. Helping our kids become better and know the things that they need to know before they become adults and get stuck not knowing what they should have known and life hits them on the chin, and then it's a struggle from there. So I'd like to introduce my good friend Kepler Knott for joining me on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Brian. I appreciate being here and having a chance to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to kind of dive in to learn a little bit more about your backstory first before we dive into the book. And then obviously when you get to where you are today, I want to know kind of the reasons behind the book. And obviously this is a dad podcast, so I want to know about your family as well. So I'll let you take it from here for a bit.
Sure, thank you. So, as you alluded to in your opener, younger people, all of us really, but can get overwhelmed by growing up. For some reason, or for many reasons, probably that seems to be taking longer. And while it is a lifelong process for all of us, it seems to be happening more slowly than it did before in a lot of ways. This book was originally based on a series of letters to my own kids. In my present and past lives, I've been a writer, a teacher, a soldier, like I know you were in the Marine Corps, an entrepreneur in the tech world, but most importantly, a husband and a dad. Um, and the book started as a series of letters to my own daughters. I have two kids, 12 and 14. And there are 15 chapters in the book, all on a different topic. I like to say it's life's heavy topics, lightly roasted, but I wanted my kids to have a fun and flexible playbook for things to think about as they grow up. Welcome to disagree, but you got to take in the information on work, on relationships, on education, on money, on politics, on meaning. Like all those things are chapters, and they're short and digestible. It's not you can read it front to cover, but it's meant to be an interactive project. And it really is, as you pointed out, about connecting parents and kids to inspire the next generation and to inspire us all across generations. So that's how the book got started and why I wrote it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you talk about each chapter, kind of a different idea or lesson that kids need to learn, that parents need to teach their kids. Stuff that a lot of stuff that we don't, it's not taught in schools.
Right.
Life lessons not taught in schools. Um, and you said interactive. Is there a workbook with it, or have you thought about building a workbook for it?
So a number of people have asked that, and that's a good question and a good idea. There's not a workbook. So the book, every chapter has certain points that it makes and certain questions that it asks. And whether a parent writes a book or not, not all of us have that time. Almost to a person or to a person, everybody picks up. It's like, yeah, these are the kinds of things that remind me of what to talk about with my kids as they grow up that they don't learn in school, and heaven forbid you don't want them to learn on the internet or television. We're stuck with all the forms of media that we have, and they're burning hot in terms of clawing attention and time away from all of us, our kids included. But it is interactive in the sense that, uh, in the case of my kids, hey, read a chapter. I'm going to ask you some questions. You're going to have some questions of me. Feel free to disagree. Let's talk about it because at the end of the day, your parents love you and they always will, but you're on your own. Like as you grow up, you learn that more and more. You've got to make your own choices, your own decisions, and you got to live with them. And the part about kids, we came up with this phrase, probably you and I are the same generation, adulting, which was not a Gen X phrase, but came later. It's like, okay, well, when you're 22, you're supposed to be doing the things that you call adulting. They're just what it means to be a grown up. So I'm stereotyping a little bit when I say this, but a lot of the books designed to get kids to be independent, autonomous, but also interdependent because we're all here together. But more resilient, more persevering, stick-to-itiveness, and anything worth doing takes time and it takes effort. And in our world of instant gratification and everybody's stealing your attention with this or that online, that can be hard to remember. So a lot of the motivation behind the book was for that. So it is interactive in the sense that it drives conversations. And every parent is different and is going to have a different style, but the topics and the questions are the same. And so I think it's important. It was important for me to remind myself to do that with my own children. And that's an ongoing process. A book is a thing, but the conversation is a process.
And you talk about questions, and they're questions that you would ask yourself or ask your kids or both.
Well, I've had to ask them of myself, and I want my kids to ask the same question. So both.
And you also mentioned, I know when your team reached out to me about having you on, one of the things that was referenced in there, and I thought it was funny, was that your daughters have read the book, and your comment was that they think it's cool. They thought it was a cool book.
Yeah, so yes, and I appreciated that. I also like when they poke back because I want my daughters to be independently minded and hey, there is an objective truth in the world and so many things. I think we forget that facts are real things. But there are also opinions and approaches to life that vary by parent, by kid. And figuring that all out as individuals in our own families is the process. And so the habit of asking and answering those questions. When I started the book, one of the minor motivations for it, I've got a good friend and happens to be our family doctor. And every year he had his daughters, he had three, write a letter to him once a year. And the letter at 7 was like, Dad, you're the greatest, da 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 da. Letter at 16 is, Dad, you're so lame, get out of my room. And he's like, hey, I'm the same dad. I mean, we all change, certainly, but you're changing and you're different. And that's okay, but just recognize that. So I just sort of reverse engineered that process to lay down things that I wanted my kids and I think kids and parents in general to think about, talk about, ask about. And that's an ongoing process. And the muscle movement of doing that is really the valuable thing. So they thought it was cool. We'll see if they think it's cool in 2 more years. But when you get married, there's a chapter on marriage. Here's some of the things you might want to think about. Ask yourself, ask the other person, and here's some of the illusions that we all have about, a wedding is an event, a marriage is a process. So you should recognize that as you step into that part of your life. So they did think it's cool. I think they still do. And the things that we talk about, they come up naturally in all conversations, I think, between parents and kids that are paying attention. So
Yeah, I think about my own boys. My older son is 26, about to be 27. My younger son's 24, and my younger son is getting married at the end of March. So it's coming up pretty quick. And
congratulations.
Thanks. But I also think about, okay, I've taught him a lot of things. I've taught him a lot of adult things, as far as even basic stuff around, cleaning the house, I mean, not cleaning the house,
Doing your
uh,
part.
doing, doing like maintenance work, like changing light bulbs, fixing things on his car. I mean, different things like that that I thought he would need to know or learn as he got older. Doing laundry, I mean, that's a big one. My oldest son, when he went off to college, he had to call us because my wife used to do his laundry. He had to call us because he didn't know how to use the washing
Our
machine at
kids
the,
do their own laundry. I'm proud to say it's a requirement. Like
yeah,
starting at age 10 or 11, you're in charge. And you go through a couple of sweaters that went in like that and came out like that. But after that, they learn. So,
yeah, no, I mean, my boys did do some of the laundry, but when washing machine at home compared to the washing machine at the college was
right,
completely different. So he was completely caught off guard by a different washing machine and how it operated differently. So he didn't even know how to use it. So he had to call us and we had to kind of walk him through it. But I think about my older son getting married. My wife and I were just talking about it today. Like he's getting married in March. um, he's on our car insurance.
yeah.
He's on my cell phone bill, all these different things. And I'm like, when he gets married, he's on my health insurance, right? So when he gets married, all these things, technically, all these things should go away. These should be all his responsibility. Like he should be not on my car insurance anymore. He
Adulting.
should, yeah, he shouldn't be on my. And my wife's like, you're right. We will have to approach that bridge when we get there, but you're absolutely right. And the thing is, my oldest son, who lives in Arizona, he doesn't live with us. He's not moving back. He lives in Arizona and he's still on my car insurance. And I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, we need to get him off too, because he's going to be 27 years old. It's time for him to have his own car insurance, right?
Right.
Like, so all these things, adulting, as you called it, are important for kids to learn. And when it comes to the book, I mean, I guess we should talk about the name of it. It's called Raising Tomorrow, Talks to Prepare Our Kids for What Lies Ahead. And what lies ahead, if you don't prepare them, then when they get to real life, adulting, as I said earlier in my intro, life can hit them on the chin and knock their world around. And now they're really stuck and not really sure where to go or what to do. So it can be confusing. So I think that the premise of your book and the things around it are super important. And so you said the book just came out. How soon ago? How long ago did it come out?
So it came out digitally early in a pre-launch, and it came out in print just this spring.
Okay.
It's been out for a few months. And interesting what you just said before. I've been on a number of podcasts, and one statement that stuck out in my mind was, hey, our goal in life as parents, our role is to not clear the path for our kids, but to teach them how to navigate it. Because no matter how well and there's a lot of, and we are running into some stereotypes here, so I hope the audience will forgive us, but there's a lot of helicopter parenting in the United States
Mhm.
and doing things for kids as opposed to letting them try, fail, and do again. The latter builds a lot more muscle mass and resilience than the former. And it's an irony of wealthy countries and communities and families, and I use that term relatively. It's but in the United States where we all live, kids. I don't know if spoiled is the right word, but if you get the story I tell my kids is you get first generation wealth where somebody didn't have a lot and then they did. Well, the chances are those kids know how to do their chores or manage themselves. They're not untethered they're not ungrounded. But fifth generation, sixth generation, whether that's a family or a country, you lose your moorings and people forget what it is that made them strong in the first place. And that's the irony of empires, countries, families. And so a lot of the book is about reminding ourselves and our kids about that so that they can learn for themselves. Not to get off topic, but it all relates to raising tomorrow and helping these talks to help our kids prepare for what lies ahead. Because some of that stuff we know what it is because we've been there and done that as parents, and some of it is unknown. AI is a great example of that in the technology field where I work. But you can teach skills and ways of thinking and ways of approaching things that will stand them well over time. So that's a lot of what's in the book as well.
Yeah. You had mentioned something early on and it made me think my wife is she used to be a school teacher for almost 20 years and now
Mm.
she's a vice principal. She's in administration, but it used to drive her crazy when she would get these parents that would literally do their kids' homework for them.
Just hurting the
Because
kid, right?
here's the thing, they would do their kids' homework for them because their kids after school had to go to sports. They had a baseball practice or basketball practice or a game or something like that, and it led into the late into the evening, and they needed to get them to bed, but they still had homework to do. So the parents would just do their homework and then give it to the kid to turn in the morning. And it's like my wife, as a seasoned, veteran teacher, could pick up on, okay, this is not this student's writing. This is not this student's. This is not
It
how
wasn't
this
AI, it was the
this
parent.
was, yeah, this isn't how this student talks in class. So where is he coming, so parents would do that kind of stuff and it's all you're doing is setting your kids up for failure. If they don't learn how to do things themselves, sure, you can be there to help guide them. You can be there to help give them
Right.
advice. You can be them to help kind of steer them in the right direction. But if they don't do the stuff on their own, you're just setting them up for failure because, like I said, in the analogy of my son using the washing machine at school, he just didn't have a clue and he had to call us for help. But anyways, um,
There's a college in North Carolina where I live called High Point University, and they have a life. It's their mantra and brand revolves around life skills for the exact reason that we're having this conversation. It's like it is amazing how many people get to that point in life. And they used to call it home economics. That was one flavor of it. But there's a whole chapter on this in the book about, hey, like there's some basic things like how to handle and manage money, how to wash your clothes, how to cook that every human being just and it doesn't feel existential because we live in a civilized society, but those are all things that kids, all of us need to know how to do, right?
yeah, absolutely. And I think that was part of the reason why I went in the Marines because I grew up
You learn very fast that way.
Yeah, I grew up not knowing a whole lot, and I thought the Marines would help me grow up, help me mature, help me learn be more responsible, all those things. And sure enough, within a matter of probably boot camp, I learned those things real quick and quickly adapted, as we say in the Marines, improvise, adapt, and overcome. So I had to do
You
that.
did Pendleton, I assume, not Paris Island, because you're West Coast.
Yeah, I did Pendleton.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah, right
sure.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, preparing with our kids, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, you talk about the idea of parents should prepare with their kids, not just for their kids.
Right.
How can dads specifically shift from being protectors who fix things to being partners in preparing their kids for, this unpredictable world without losing the sense of leadership and guidance?
How do dads shift from being protectors to being guides so that kids can learn for themselves? So, so first of all, I would say that can depend on the topic. Um, whether that's so there's a chapter on learning, for example, and that's one talk track. I'll pick a very not a dark topic, but a stark one at least. So there's a chapter in the book on violence. And this is a very physical way of answering your question, but it's a metaphor for a lot of what's in the book. So I have, so there's a chapter on boys. That's probably the only chapter I feel fully qualified to comment on. So, hey, girls, you're going to grow up, and this is what boys are like. But when it comes to violence, um, I say to my girls, I can tell you things, but you're going to have to learn some things on your own. So my kids live in a pretty sheltered world, and that's a relative term. Rules based, don't hit girls. And boys versus girls are raised differently when it comes to violence. Most boys have probably had their nose shoved in the dirt, at a relatively young age. But the physical world, we have words, which is hopefully what we use in our society, and then all the way at the other end of the spectrum, you have violence when it comes to how people solve problems. So, back to your question, you have the same chance, ladies, of encountering actual or threatened violence as you do of getting in a car accident. It's about 1 in 700. That may never happen to you, and I hope it doesn't, but you will likely know someone to whom it has. And so, best to be prepared for that. While the world we live in, despite what the media says, is safer in so many ways, the possibility still exists. So, what do you do? So, you learn how to talk to strangers. Most people are decent. Don't avoid them. Most violence, by the way, unfortunately, comes from people that we know, not that we don't know. And then
Mhm.
there's a list of things, and a lot of chapters have this. Hey, here's 4 things that you've got to learn for yourself. And I trained my kids on this, and I'm not we don't have a workout gym in our backyard, but just psychologically and then physically, like, hey, you got to pay attention. Situational awareness. You learn a lot about that in the Marine Corps. Don't
Mhm.
believe it can ever happen to you. Listen to your instincts. There's a great book by Gavin de Becker called The Gift of Fear. And because we live in a civilized world, people and women especially tend to err on the side of not wanting to offend versus, hey, what you're doing is not okay with me. And then lastly, like learn how to fight. Like I'm not saying you've got to be an elite warrior, but practice. Like come into contact with the world. And we have 2 daughters that are pretty close to each other, so they learn how to fight that way. But my oldest daughter takes Krav Maga. But there are things that you can push your kid to go do that get them to learn about a lot of these topics. I'm just using one in particular that will have them experience it, not just read it or think about it, but live it. And so, again, violence is a very particular topic and one that is uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about. But that's an example of, hey, I'm not always going to be there for you. Like when you go on your first date and I'm sitting at home in the rocking chair with the shotgun, which is an old Southern myth, I'm not there with you. So you got to learn to be aware. You got to pay attention. You got to trust your instincts, and you should know how to get out of the way, not be there, and or should it come to that, be able to put up some sort of a fight. And so those are 4 specific things that are active on their part, not my part. I can guide them, but I can't protect them, and I know that. And I think it's hard for dads of daughters, especially. Boys are different. You got different problems, but at the end of the day, show don't tell is a very important part of I think how we raise our kids.
Yeah. You're sitting there talking about that uh, those scenarios, and I'm sitting here thinking about a time when I was in elementary school. I was probably, gosh, fourth grade, something like that. And I was walking home from school. I remember this like it was yesterday, Kelber. I was walking home from school. I had a group of bullies, one in particular that was like kind of the leader of the pack. There
Right.
was about three or four of them, and they were giving me a hard time the whole way, like the whole walk home. They were giving me a hard time, trying to pick on me, trying to start something. And because there was a group of them, I'm obviously not going to try to take on all these guys. I'm like, just leave me the hell alone. I just want to go home. So I ended up having to run and try to get away from them. And
Fight or flight. Sometimes
I,
flight works too.
I ran
Hopefully.
home. I ran home. My dad happened to be home, and I was telling him about it. And you know what that bozo did? He put me right back in the car. And he said, take me to where those guys were. And I was like, no, Dad, I don't want you getting involved. He's like,
Right.
he goes, I'm not getting involved. He took me right back to where we found these kids and he told me to get out of the car and kick his ass. And I'm like, Dad, there's like three or four of them. He goes, I'll make sure that the others stay out of the way, but you just deal with the one guy that's giving you a hard time. And I was scared to death because he was a bully. He was a big, like, I didn't want to
But he
mess
was
with this
showing
kid.
you, not just telling you.
Yeah, so my dad forced me to get out of the car and take on this kid, and they didn't want to do it either. Like the kid's like, "Well, I'm not gonna like your dad's gonna get involved. I'm not." I'm like, "No, he says he's not getting involved. He just wants this to be over with." And we did. We scrapped, and I don't remember the outcome. I don't remember what happened. I just remember getting into a scrap with this kid, and from there on out, they never messed with me again.
Right.
So I don't know if I won, I don't know if I lost, but the bottom line is
But you made a point.
I showed that I had no fear, that I was going to stand up and do what I needed to do to protect myself. And my dad wasn't going to get in the way, even in third, fourth grade, he was not going to get in the way. He was going to teach me a lesson by having me be in the middle of the lesson. Like,
Yep.
just throwing me right into the lion's den. And yeah, and then I had a few bullies growing up after that, but there was nothing that I couldn't handle. Every time I had an issue
But
with
he helped
somebody,
you adopt the mindset of how to handle that.
he helped me adopt the mindset, how to handle it. He helped me to kind of grow out of that fear and take on things that were challenging, whether I won or lost or succeeded or didn't succeed, take on the challenge to get through something that maybe I may have been scared to do, but to challenge me to get through it. And yeah, I mean, I obviously was in a few other scraps after that. As a kid, you get in those
Sure.
kind of things, but yeah, and it's crazy. 52 years old, I remember it like it was yesterday. It's
It's a
crazy.
defining moment. Good for
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah. I, good for
If that
dad.
happened, if that went down today, just imagine like the ripple effect of that. It would be harder to do that today, but that sound like
Yeah.
that
Harder
worked
today
out for
because
everybody.
harder,
One kid learned not to be a bully, and one kid learned how to stand up to one, and that's a good thing.
harder today because you just don't know what kids are carrying,
Or their
guns,
parents, or
knives.
yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
It's just
That's
insane.
true.
Um, well, cool. I think that, you talk about one of the things that I've written down, rites of passage, and you reference the importance of modern rites of passage. And in a world really that's lost a lot of traditional markers of maturity, what are some practical modern ways dads can create meaningful rites of passage that help their kids, especially sons or daughters, to step confidently into adulthood? Because I think that's important.
Yeah. So at the turn of the last century, you're probably familiar with this outfit. There's an organization called Outward Bound. And I know you were in the Marine Corps. You may or may not have done Outward Bound. I did. And one of the things I learned that the organization got started. So at the turn of the last century, cruise liners, civilian ships were getting sunk by German U-boats, and people were going into the water.
Hmm.
It's cold. It's the Atlantic. The people that were surviving were the old people, and I don't mean 20. I mean 50s older. And the people that were drowning were the young people, and I don't mean five. I mean teenagers and young adults. And it dawned on them that this ability to persevere and be self-reliant and have the right attitude, much like your father was trying to show you, I imagine, was gold, was golden. And so, to your question of what are those rites of passage, I think that because we live, again, it's a relative term, but in a relatively cushy, wealthy society, the opportunity to suffer and to let kids suffer and to be in some pain as a way of learning about themselves and the world is an important thing. So I don't know if that's outward bound, that costs money. I don't know if that's putting them out in the woods to camp or, hey, you've got a 5 mile hike from here to here. Here's a map. Go figure it out. Even in a small world, like in our neighborhood, we send our kids to the store and, they've got to walk past the guy on the corner who's probably a little bit out of his head. We live in a city. They've got to navigate the streets. They've got to show up and get the thing and make it home and figure out how to get home. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It's just a mindset of like, let's put our kids in uncomfortable situations on a regular basis to have them get confidence. And there's little rites of passage and there's big rites of passage. I mean, religions have rites of passage. The military obviously is a rite of passage. That's different strokes for different folks. But I think the mindset of not being as the helicopter parent, but being the free range parent to let kids learn those things and letting them be curious, sometimes to a fault, is helpful. So I don't know that there's any one thing. It depends on where you live and who you are and what your resources are. But I do think that the mindset is a universalism that if more of us took upon ourselves to not impose, but to give to our kids, that would be something that our kids would benefit from because it's the struggle that matters. Just like the fight you had with your bully. I don't remember if I won or lost, but I had to show up. And so showing up and being present and doing the hard things is something that I think, again, stereotyping, but as a society, we have less of that than we used to. It used to be almost required. Like most kids in the early 1900s worked on farms. They had to get up early, they had to do those things. And today, they've got their devices. And so it's very easy with material and resource-driven wealth, resources to become untethered. I told the story about Outward Bound. So having that mindset as a parent and trying to find and figure out in the context of how you live and where you live, what you can do with and for your kids and have your kids do for themselves, I think is really important.
Yeah, and I think about when you're talking about that rites of passage, I think about, this starts at a very early age. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily start at a teenage. I mean, think about a toddler that's
And we
trying
sent
to,
our kid to the store when she was 8. That story I told. So that might have been too early or too late. I don't know, but
Yeah, I used to do that stuff too. Now that I think about it, I used to do that stuff too. But I used to walk to school all the time or walk to the
yeah.
bus all the time to go to school. But no, I think about rites of passage and putting our kids in challenging situations so they can learn and grow. I think about a toddler that's trying to stand up on his own to learn to walk, and parents that are like, maybe they're guiding him or getting ready so he doesn't get hurt, but parents that are right by that child as it's trying to walk and take those steps. And I saw a quote the other day. I can't remember how it went, but something along the lines of, um, a child that falls, that's learning how to walk, falls and gets right back up, and we should learn from that that lesson that hey, that child could have easily given up and never ever learned to walk because it was like, they fell once and they didn't like that feeling of not being basically unsuccessful or rejected in the sense that they were trying to accomplish something. They get right back up and they keep going. And that's something that we need to do as adults, even today. We need to do as adults is when stuff gets challenging. I mean, shoot, we were talking about, I was just doing I did the triathlon and just in the training and stuff that I had to do, there were so many struggles and so many challenges that I faced and even trainings that didn't go well that I was really upset about. I could have easily said, you know what, the triathlon is just not for me this year. I'll defer it till next year, or I'll just send it to give it to somebody else or something. It's just not for me this year. I could have done that, but to to keep fighting and keep moving forward and like a child does, they just keep moving forward. I think it's super important. So the rites of passage is a is a great tool for parents to learn to teach their kids as they grow up and get older.
Yeah, and there's many good ideas about how to do that that are small and large that I think again as a society that we've kind of forgotten. Either they used to be kind of required because that's just the way the world was, and now they're more artificial, and so it takes more effort to think about that and engage in that and to let it happen for your kids. And sometimes the best thing to do is to leave them alone.
Yeah.
I don't mean in the world, but to figure those things out. To your point about the toddler learning how to walk.
Right, right. Yeah. When it comes to you writing this book, I know I think about for me with the podcast and all the guests that I've had on, there's a lot of different things that have come up over the years, 6 years to be exact, over the years of the 315 episodes that I've done that the guys that I've had on, I've had women too, but the people that I have had on my show when it comes to parenting, I think sometimes they've said something along the way that I go, dang it, why didn't I think of that when my kids were growing up? Why
Right.
didn't I do that when my kids were growing up? Dang, that's a great idea. I wish I would have thought about it. And so I learn from those that I interview. There's a lot of things that I learn as parenting, as a parent. For you, writing this book, I mean, there had to be some things that you learned about yourself that you went, okay, I need to switch that part of me when it comes to parenting. Were there any things that you may have learned along the way in writing this book that would help you?
Yeah, so the act of writing causes you to put down on paper what you think is true or not true and what you should or shouldn't think and do about that. And so that alone was helpful. I think and I hope I learned to listen a lot better because I talked to a lot of parents and did a lot of research. And so admitting that it's your responsibility to go help guide your kids, but also admitting in front of your kids that you don't know it all. There's a whole chapter on parenting where I unpack this for my kids, and as we talked about earlier, a lot of it and how we show up more in our kids' lives. It's not just what we tell them; it's what we show them. So, I would write something about what I thought was the right way, the right path, and then I would have to stand back and be like, well, is that what I'm doing? Like, am I following my own guidance? And sometimes, a lot of times I was, and sometimes I wasn't. So it is a constant check-in and recheck-in with yourself that matters. And that's look, our kids already know that their parents aren't perfect, and most kids do, and parents, got to understand that. Um, there are probably many, many things that I can and should have done better, and there will continue to be. But I also think our kids give us a lot of credit for, like, hey, I understand. And we, in our house, we tell them, look, we're the parents, and if we don't always get it right, doesn't mean we're not trying. I mean, one of the great things about a book like this and just this topic that we're covering is I can't, barring some psychosis, there's no parent in the world that doesn't want better for their kid and doesn't want their kid to do well and be well and think well. And that's really a lot of the impetus behind this. And along the way, we're all going to make mistakes. Um, and so it is. So yeah, the chapter on parenting covers a lot of that stuff. And I think that I will continue to learn more. And as I've said, this book is a process. It is a project, but it's ongoing. So everybody who listens to this or has these thoughts or reads this book will have their own ways of dealing with that. And just like not giving up for your triathlon, just don't give up. And that's cliche wisdom, but you have to remind yourself nonetheless.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think it's really cool that you put this together. I'm sure eventually, maybe down the road, maybe a year or two out, that you're going to come up with some sort of idea to kind of add to this book, whether there's a part two, whether it deals with
The
something more,
revised version.
yeah, whether it deals with something more specific. I don't know, but I could see that happening down the road, or maybe even the workbook that we had talked about earlier. But
Yeah.
um, I think it's cool, Kelper. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you being on. Where's the best places for my listeners, viewers, if they want to look you up, learn a little bit more about you, or even look up to get a copy of the book? Best places for them to do that.
So the book is Raising Tomorrow: Talks to Prepare Our Kids for What Lies Ahead. It's available on Amazon. It will be available on other platforms coming. There's a website for the book that has a free download. It's called www.raisingtomorrow.org. There's also a group Facebook page of the same name. The website's probably the best place to go where you can scan and very quickly see, okay, what's this about? What's some of the research? What are the chapters about? Here's a download for a chapter. That's probably the fastest way to do that. And it also has links if you want to know more or want to join the Facebook page.
Cool. Well, I'll make sure all the links are in the show notes. But thank you for writing the book. Thank you for being on. I'm looking forward to continuing to stay in touch. And if you're ever out in Southern California or I'm back out in North Carolina, I will make sure to reach out to you and you do the same.
Right on. Bryan, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it a lot. And thanks to everybody for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, guys, it's been another episode of Dad Up. I want to thank my good friend Kepler Knott for being on. Make sure you guys go check out the book, check out his website. You can do that in the show notes below. Make sure if you're not following him yet on social media, make sure you please do that as well. If you have questions about the book or questions about the chapter, you can certainly reach out to him through messaging. I'm sure he would be more than happy to answer your questions. Unless you send him a weirdly weird question, he may just not answer that. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out to him. And if you have questions for me, you can reach out to me as well. And listen, if you are not yet subscribed to my show, please make sure you do that so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at Dad Up Podcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad up.